Hello, my name is Sean Bird, currently enrolled in Sonoran Desert Institute. The class I'm taking is FTT 130. Student ID is SHBI05844, and today I'll be going over my Muzzleloader Lab project. The package, the corners on the box were damaged a little bit, kind of squished in, but when I opened it up, the foam protected everything. The wood was fine, no major dents. All the hardware was still together in their bags. The issue I had with the unboxing, which I guess kind of scared me or made me nervous, was that all the screws were in one bag. They weren't labeled, but after reading through the course, I was able to kind of figure out what screws went to what part of the actual project. Now came the inletting of the lock assembly. The lock assembly was the first part just because the wood around the lock assembly is the most fragile. So the book said to start off with the hardest part or the most fragile part and then work your way up. During this process, I was kind of nervous, first time ever inletting anything. The first time I put the inletting black on the lock assembly, I think I did it slightly too heavy because there was a lot darker parts. And I shaved down some wood, and I kind of took my time to figure out the whole inletting process. But as you can see in the bottom picture, it fits extremely well actually, and I thought it was a good experience. When I started inletting the butt plate, I think by far this was the hardest part of the project because it felt like I would take off some wood, but then I wouldn't take off enough. And then other times I would take off too much wood and I would have to fix it on the other side just so it could start fitting flush, getting it all nice, even black pattern all the way around the brass. But I think after a week, I was able to fully get it sitting in nice and flush, wood to metal, no big gaps. There is one slight small gap, but you're not going to see it unless you're really looking for it. The toe plate was pretty easy. I had to remove about a 1/4 inch of wood so it could fit in lengthwise. And then in the picture on the left, you can see I have the toe plate brass in my vise, and I just had to kind of file about roughly a 45-degree angle into the tip. That way, when it meets the butt plate, it would actually sit all the way down flush with no gaps. It was pretty easy. I didn't really have too many issues with this. I was kind of concerned because it sat a little bit too far one side, but I was able to fix it up with shaving down the actual corners of the toe plate. And if it's really smooth, the whole back end, the toe plate, the butt plate, the meeting point is pretty well smoothed out. When it came to the shaping and sanding of the actual wood, I started at the comb and I did very long, slow, meticulous removal of the wood. It kind of stressed me out because I was slightly nervous. I didn't want to remove too much wood or have one side be a little bit bigger than the other. So I took my time. I went slow. Any imperfections I did see, I kind of cleaned it up with the sanding process. Now, I did get the comb probably little bit more of a slight angle than what the original piece was. But when I hold it up to me now, it feels comfortable. I'm okay with it. It was a pretty easy job to perform on the project, I think. Finishing part of the project had me the most excited. I was coming close to the end of the project. Everything was coming together. And this part I knew was going to show probably the most progress. And I started out using the mineral spirits and the clear gloss. And this basically just used for the stain to get deeper into the wood. I did probably roughly 3 coats of the mixture, let it dry for 24 hours, and then I did two coats of the actual stain. And that got the wood right where I wanted it. It was a nice light dark finish. And then all I had to do was 2 coats of the satin finish, and then I let it sit for roughly 2 days before I messed with the wood. And in between each one, I would wipe it down with the 000 pads just to kind of smooth it out. Any little imperfections from the previous process got cleared up pretty easy, no major issues. And this part of the project, I think, can be one of the most useful skills to have, just because if a stock comes in and you do work on it, you're going to probably most likely have to refinish that wood. So I think personally, this was probably the most influential aspect of the project, just because I could see doing this more and more if I ever went to work in a shop. Browning the barrel. Oh, this was probably the most nerve-wracking of the steps, because I never thought I would intentionally make something rust to cause it to protect that metal. It took roughly 2.5 days of the same steps. I heated it up. As soon as the browning solution would automatically start boiling and evaporating, I would start wiping it. I had my wife help me. We had a little wooden dowel in the actual barrel itself, and I had her spin it slowly. That way I could heat up all 3 sections evenly. And each pass, complete pass, probably took maybe 5 minutes heating it up, wiping it on, doing it 1 second time, and then letting it sit for about 6 to 12 hours between coats. Um, it was pretty easy. It was nerve-wracking. Uh, at first, it kind of looked a little splotchy, but by the 4th coat, 5th coat, it all started becoming one even color all the way through. I think it came out extremely well for doing it the first time. Now this is my finished product. Um, as you can see, the wood is all one solid color all the way through. The browning process, there is no actual like discoloration in the barrel. I think it came out pretty well. The project took me roughly 6 weeks of constantly working on it little by little each night. I didn't work too long on it just because I didn't want to start stressing my eyes out or myself out and then making a big mistake. So I went a little bit more slow and steady, but it came out pretty well. I don't have the black powder or the rounds to actually shoot it and test fire it yet. But on the next slide, it's going to go ahead and go over the function check for the rifle itself. Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Sean Berg, currently enrolled in Sonoran Desert Institute. My class I'm taking right now is FTT 130, and my student ID is SHB I05844. Today I'll be going over the Muzzleloader Lab project, the function check. Okay, so the hammer has 3 positions. You have the first position where the hammer's all the way down. Then you bring it back to a half cock position, the first click. And this is going to be the safety. Neither trigger is going to drop the hammer. And then you will bring it back to the second click. When you bring it back to the second click, both the triggers. Good afternoon. My name is Sean Berg, currently enrolled in Sonoran Desert Institute. My class I'm taking right now is FTT 130, and my student ID is SHB I05844. Today I'll be going over the Muzzleloader Lab project, the function check. Okay, so the hammer has three positions. You have the first position where the hammer's all the way down. Then you bring it back to a half cock position, the first click. And this is going to be the safety. Neither trigger is going to drop the hammer. And then you will bring it back to the second click. When you bring it back to the second click, both the triggers